We're now in Daf Lamed Daled in Beitsa, and the Gemora is trying to explain the Mishnah that we had on Daf Lamed Gimel Amud Aleph, where it said we're forbidden to heat up certain, what we would think in modern terms of being roof tiles made out of ceramic. Why would you want to heat them up? Because it's like heating up a hot plate or a surface upon which you can then roast other things. So the problem with this ceramic tile is because the Gemora says either we're worried it might break in the heat. If you heat it up to the point where it turns white, it might break. And that would be a problem that retroactively we've seen your work that you've done up until that point as being futile, and basically you've done extra work on Yom Tov that was not beneficial for Yom Tov in the end. And if we're worried about that eventuality, we forbid you for doing it. So it won't turn out that you've done any extra work on Yom Tov. Or there's another version of Rabbi Yochanan's explanation of why we're worried about your heating up this ceramic tile, that perhaps we're worried about another problem, which is that as you heat it up, it sort of hardens up this tile, which is a new tile. We said it's talking specifically about a new tile, and therefore it's like you're making it, you're finalizing the product, you're giving it its last final touch of becoming a more hardened, enduring product, so therefore it's like you made it into a cleat. So now the Gemora is going to get back to this and show that there's a difference between these two approaches of Rabbi Yochanan's explanation of the Mishnah. But first we're going to work through a Mishnah that appears in Chulin, which has to do with an animal becoming treif, and how we either do or don't check it. And that's going to lead us back to this problem of Yom Tov. But first we're going to learn a lot of intricate halachas about kashrus. So keep your safety belt fastened as we fly up into the air and look down upon all the issues of cooling, which is like the other end of the world as far as we're concerned right now. Okay.
We're doing shchita, right?
We're doing shchita?
We're doing shchita.
I mean in the morning we're doing shchita?
No, here.
Here we're dealing with an animal that you want to eat. Obviously, if you want to eat an animal, you have to shecht it. Mm-hmm. And the question is, we know from earlier in the Masechta, actually, our Masechta did talk about this as well, that the need to check the simanim for a kosher animal is really a chumrah. We said not everybody even holds you need to really check all the simanim. And Rashi's going to mention this later on, by the way. But if something happened to the animal, that it undergoes a certain physical trauma, then perhaps you have to check it. Not just because of a chumrah, but because of what we call mi'ikar adin. The letter of the law would actually require you. That's what we're discussing here. When it's undergone a certain trauma, certain physical violence happened to the animal that may have ruined some of its internal organs, etc., then we have to be much more careful. Okay? And by the way, that's what I heard. A lot of people are against some of the ways of shipping chickens, because you put them in these small little crates. In a way, you're crushing them, or you're making it impossible for them to sit in there without feeling crushed. And not that we're necessarily worried about the feelings of the animal, but we are worried about the pain. We know the Sar Baal Chaim is an issue, but also the internal organs may get crushed and so forth. And maybe one of them will trample the other, or maybe as he stops at a stoplight, he'll stop short and the animal will bash into the side of the crate. So the issues that we're reading about now sound a bit cruel. How could anyone do this to an animal? But the truth is, especially in our modern world of fast foods, etc., a lot of these things happen just because we're handling massive amounts of animals in order to process them within the food industry. So you may think, what we're about to read is maybe rare and so on and so forth. Maybe it is. I hope it is. But it's also something we should be aware of. Excuse me. Because even without realizing it, we can enter into some of these situations, unfortunately. So these things, unfortunately, might become applicable even in our day and age. Even if someone's not trying to be cruel to the animal. Okay. Who would like to start the ball rolling? And I just have to warn you, some of these Rashis aren't the easiest Rashis in the world. So whoever takes the Gemora...
I'll take the Gemora.
might have an easier job, but I have to warn you about that as well. The Gemora is also a bit
We
difficult.
need Jack, right?
Yeah, we could wait for Jack to come back, but I think he may not be coming back so quickly, so that's where he went, but where he ended up, who knows. Never know with Jack. He could have been hijacked. I mean, in a good way, of course. Alright, so let's trudge on, as we would call it.
Okay, Tsama and Hashem. So we look on the Mishnah over there, and there
Over
is
there, meaning
Quran and
Kulein, right? And actually, let's just make note of the actual daf in case you're ever sitting in front of a Gemora Kulein. You might as well open it up and look what we're... It's always better to look in the Masechta than we're looking in the wrong Masechta now, but it's just quoted. Nun Vav. Nun Vav Amud Beis. Amud Aleph, sorry. Alright, so it's a Mishnah. You can also look it up in the Mishnayos of Chulin, hopefully, and find it there as well.
Vrasa or Shetrefa Kotel. So I don't know if it's passive or we do it. We stand
What
on
would
the-
make that passive? Why would you call that passive? Shalom. Call to. Tell me what might have made you think it's passive.
Because I can't see the we or I or someone standing on a bird.
Okay, so then,
So is it stood on, a bird that stood on?
okay, so tell me what the verb is. How would you say it in infinitive?
The rus.
The dalet is not part of it?
The rus.
Lidros. And by the way, in modern Hebrew, you even talk about drisas haregel, drisat haregel, like you have the right to pass it, to walk through a certain area. It's called drisas haregel. It's a legal term, sometimes used in terms of, are people allowed to walk through your building? It's an issue in many neighborhoods that sometimes it takes you a second to go from one street to another. If you go through a building, it will take you 20 minutes to cut around the longer way. But are people allowed to cut through your building? It's a question of drisas haregel. Who has the right of drisas haregel? Literally trampling with the ground, with the feet. Okay?
Trample on it.
So here, dar sa has two possibilities. It could be that hey on the end is what?
Referring to whatever's being stood on.
Right? It could be a pronoun, a direct pronoun, which would leave daras as the main verb,
If
which
it's
would
trampled.
be making it passive as well.
You trample it.
And that's what I'm thinking.
Trample the chicken.
Let's imagine it's a chicken. It's easier to, I think, imagine if it's a chicken or something of that nature. So the darsa, the hey, could make it into a feminine verb. She trampled. But since that would be unusual for a Mishnah to start, unless it's a feminine subject like nida or something like that, why would chulin have to do with a woman trampling? So rather than that option, which is less desirable, let's try the other option, where the hey would be the direct pronoun and the verb would be daras And the hay would be akin to if it had had a separate word, ota. Doras ota. He trampled it. And as in many Mishnayos and Braisos of this nature, it's as if you're saying the word if beforehand. Because that's what many, I think 99% of the Mishnayos that go with this type of style are like saying, if this and this and this happened, then this is what you should do. But if this and this and this happened, it just doesn't put the word if. For some reason, you just have to understand that that's the meaning. Right? I guess in modern halacha svarim, like the Shulchan Aruch or the Mishnah Berurah, these kind of svarim probably put the word if in. But they may not, they also may not. It's like the economy of words that Chazal love to observe. So just imagine that if you're reading a Mishnah, which is really a halacha, that's what most Mishnayos are, you're basically saying, if this is what happened, then this is what you have to do. So the word if is implied. So let's try it that way. Darsa would therefore mean what?
You trample it.
What did I just say about inserting a word?
Hi.
I didn't know. I talked about it. I mentioned, I just went off on a 5-minute discourse about you have to insert a word. As Shabbatai, if he caught it. If nobody caught it, then I'm going back to the drawing board. or the sleeping board or somewhere.
If, and about trampled.
Yeah.
You hear what he just said?
If an animal is trampled.
So what word should you be inserting?
If an animal, if it was trampled.
If. Forget about the other words. The main thing is to realize you're reading a halacha. Almost all halachas, unless they're telling you what to do in the future, like this is what you should do when you get up in the morning, most halachas are, if this happened, then this is what you should do.
If you trampled it.
Good. So now it's going to go through a number of accidents which could have happened to an animal that you later want to eat, and therefore it's going to tell you, if before you ended up trying to eat it, something bad happened to it, then you'll have to take certain steps. Excuse the pun. It took you too long to get that. I was counting the seconds, like how many seconds is it going to take? And smiled.
I was looking at the next word, wondering what's going to come out of it.
So let's try the same style of
Or shut rafa.
no, shin, often is not part of the word.
She, when.
No, that's kishet.
Oh,
She, just a shin.
is that,
That. Or in other words, if the situation was such that.
trefa. If it was
No.
made, if it was torn.
Now you're trying to make it passive again. For some reason you love to make things passive
Yeah.
without any indication from the word that it really is a passive word. We just
Or if he,
ironed that one out.
or if he crushed it against the wall.
Okay, now toref, betroth
Tear.
means to tear, but Rashi here seems to learn it as almost like the verb of throwing. That you can, I guess, they call scrambled eggs, one of the words in Chazal for scrambled eggs, Beitsa trufot. Like you whip it up. I think it's almost that same kind of action, like kind of doing that, take the animal going like that.
Through it.
I think that's, if you